Morning, everyone. How are we doing today? So, as promised, as we ended our daily financial news, which is a show that was inspired by Gary Vee and Nipsey Hussle back, I don't know, I guess about a year ago or so, is something I really enjoy doing for all of you, because again, not many of you have the chance to consume 90 minutes to 2 hours of financial data. So I do that for you each and every day. If you enjoy those shows, make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe so you get the alerts when new content comes out. But what I wanted to do in this live stream is talk to you about the single family home. I'm on record in the last month, maybe 8 weeks, of saying that I think the single family home is going to be the next best investment, or is going to be the best investment for the next decade. I think there's a lot of cities and markets where that is going to be really true. I also think there are growing metros where that is going to be a horrible idea. And again, this all goes back to the point that I talk about in one rental at a time, is you've got to learn your market. I'm just going to go through a bunch of data that I've been consuming. I will call out that I put up a video this morning at 8 a.m. that talks about the Fresno market. I thought it was important for you to see me review Fresno statistics across 3 zip codes, because that's what I've been doing for 20 years. And I didn't want it to be theoretical. So I think that's about a 20-minute video. We talk about Fresno and Clovis in total, and then we talk about 3 very different zip codes. And as you'll see us go through that, hopefully you will see that I know what I'm talking about. I know my markets. I know my numbers. That's what I want for you in your market. Again, I've never lived in Fresno. Still to this date, I've never spent the night in Fresno. So you can absolutely learn your market without living there. And again, if you live in New York, the Bay Area, LA, I think you would be very beneficial of learning a market, at least to own a rental outside of those areas. So again, supply demand is what makes the real estate market go. We have seen some very interesting national numbers. For example, this morning I read, I think it was Redfin, that said 41% of the sales that were completed in April had bidding wars. That's not what you would expect, right? For April, most of the country was shut down. But it's interesting, right? So what does that mean? Well, first off, that's not true nationally, right? We talked to Brian Lebo from Las Vegas, and while the nation saw supply drop, Vegas saw supply increase. So again, learn your market. The other thing that is becoming very important here is how the states and your cities are reopening or not reopening. Georgia was the first state, as I recall, to kind of go for it. Near as I can tell, the data is it's going pretty well, which again, we want to keep our fingers crossed and say, go Georgia. But what does that mean for others, right? What does it mean for hard hit areas? We're clearly seeing the big cities change consumer behavior. Consumers are going from cities to suburbs. Just look at the Redfin data and Zillow data on searches. Big cities, at least for the coming couple of years, are going to see an exodus. Just saw, right? I feel like I've been picking on New York, so I'll talk about San Francisco. There are increasing people who live in San Francisco that work at these tech companies that say they feel like a prisoner because they are seeing an explosion of homeless tent cities just lined up on sidewalks. And now they have their companies saying you can work from home forever. Why in hell would you want to live in San Francisco, feel like a prisoner, have to walk around needles and other stuff if you could live somewhere else? San Francisco has seen the peak in values for residential and office. probably for the next decade. But that just means somebody loses, San Francisco, but who wins, right? Are they going to other California locations? Are they going across the state lines to Las Vegas? What is going on? So those are very interesting things we have to figure out. Also, we have to ask ourselves about consumer behavior. Are Class A apartment dwellers going to say, you know what? I don't need the gym and the dog park and all of those things. I'm going to buy a house now. This shelter in place thing was not fun. I'm going to take my, I'm going to stop living in a Class A and I'm going to buy a new home construction that has a yard. That is going to happen. Millennials are going to step into the market. They may double up, but they are going to move into the housing market. So ask yourself, learn your markets, learn your zip codes. In the video I did on Fresno this morning, right, probably 20 minutes ago or so, we talked about 93728, which we call the Tower District, which is I think we said 70% owner occupied and 30% renters. And then we talked about 93711, which is North Fresno, and we're like, oof, that's where the rich live. That market is 2-3x the median. Not supply is increasing, no buyers, not good. And then we talked about 93702, which is kind of the bread and butter area that I'm buying in actively. So again, realize that your city has subsequent zip codes that may be good or bad for affordable housing. So learn your market. Watch that video, how we go through the numbers. And hopefully, Benny and I will be doing these weeklies or monthly going forward. I really want to show you guys what I mean by learn your market. So you can see I'm not just some talking head. I actually do this business, and that's what I do, right? Unfortunately, buying real estate is pretty easy for me. I've done it enough times. I only can do a couple a month. So I'm trying to help others change your future. Buying a single family rental or 4 will change your future. The other things we got to realize is the data, the environment, the economy that we are living in is so changing all the time. We have let me get the number, 7 people in forbearance. That number is interesting. They're changing the forbearance rules all the time. Then also, I don't know if you know this, but people have a record past due, right? So everybody is not in an FHA or Freddie and Fannie loan. We have 3.6 million people already late on their mortgage payment. The 3 markets that this is dominated in is Miami, Las Vegas, and New York. So again, people are late. This 4.7 million people in forbearance are not included. So if you take 4.7, add 3.6, what does that give you? 8.3 million people aren't making their mortgage payments. And now you're going to start to see concentration. Miami, Las Vegas, New York. And this is likely going to continue. There will likely be other cities impacted by this. So again, even if we get to 30% unemployment, that still means 70% are employed. It means what is going to happen to supply? What is going to happen to demand? We are seeing demand, at least, could be artificially, could be fear of missing out. Don't know. But I think it's pretty clear. I actually don't think it's fear of missing out. I think what we are seeing, at least in the short term, is we are seeing a movement of people with options. If you have the financial wherewithal and you live in New York or San Francisco, for example, and your employer is saying you can work from anywhere, some people are already moving. And we've seen that in the numbers I've reported in the financial news. I think it was 160,000 people have mail forwarding in New York inside of 6 or 8 weeks. This is happening. So that could be some of the artificial demand. But I think what is really going to happen is we are going to see millennials and we are going to see Class A apartment dwellers buy their first home. I don't think that's a fear of missing out. It could be. I could be wrong. But I think there's a lot of people that have been renting, specifically Class A, for the amenities, have realized that those amenities can go away. And oh, by the way, given interest rates under 3% for some owner occupants, it might be cheaper to own. Think about that. It might be cheaper to own for some of these people. Again, this is not national stuff. Many, many metros have problems. So please learn your market. I strongly believe the single family home market will be the best investment for the next 10 years. That does not mean every market works. But it does mean if you do your homework, you can find good and great deals. You can avoid the average and bad. I still believe that most of you should be learning your market right now. It is too noisy, too chaotic, too much is changing, lending is changing. But that means these next 90 days are exactly the time to start learning. You can watch your market evolve. Watch how I go through the Fresno market, those 3 zip codes with a fine-tooth comb, and find out what the data is telling me. I can do that because I've been looking at it for 20 years. I'm showing you how I break down my market. I'm showing you what you can do when you are in your market. You can find good and great deals. So again, lots of stuff going on in the residential single-family home market. I think it is very exciting. I think the multifamily market is in trouble for years, so I'm going to focus on single families. And then in a couple of years, I'm going to start picking up the pieces in the multifamily market. It is going to be so similar to how we went from 8 to 80 units that I wrote out in this book. It's funny. I'm going to buy single family homes probably through 2022, maybe 2023. And then as prices went up, I am going to look to 1031 into some distressed multifamily, just like last time. All right, everybody, I felt like I had to create this. Learning your market is so important. It is what I teach people. I did a full video on it this morning, how I break down Fresno. Please check that out. And of course, have a wonderful, wonderful day. Take care.